Energy Ministry's Power Planning Technical Committee clash with NDC minority over projections of an imminent doomsday. We look at the facts and speak to both sides. And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone and Prime Insurance. A major controversy is tonight erupting between the Energy Ministry's Power Planning Technical Committee over projections made by the minority in Parliament suggesting that doomsday is imminent. Well, in what appears to be a very rare public outing, the Power Planning Committee and its engineers have issued a statement calling out the minority and declaring there will not be doomsday anytime soon. But there are questions still begging, and we'll be getting into some of the facts pretty soon. Let's get into some of the details that the technical committee is putting out today, since doomsday is such a big deal for all of us, and see if it addresses the concerns that had been raised by the minority on the Mines and Energy Committee. My colleague Kwekwa Santo joins me in the studio. Kwekwa, let's start with the fundamental issues the minority raised, which boil down to the generation capacity we currently have.
So Evans, that press statement from John Jinapor stated, and I quote, "The existing generating capacities will not be adequate to serve the projected demand with 18% reserve margin for any of the planning years." This is a contention that the committee is disputing. And if you look at this statement that they've put out, they state that indeed, the 2022 electricity supply plan shows that at the beginning of 2022, a total installed generation capacity in Ghana is 5,265.1 megawatts, and the dependable capacity is 4,706 megawatts. The supply plan again projects the peak highest, that is, the demand projected for 2022 to 2026, to be 3,545.27 megawatts. So they are disputing these claims that they do not have enough reserve supply in case there is doomsday to cushion Ghanaians. That is the central claim that was made by John Jinapor in that press statement. But this explanation that has been offered by this committee goes contrary to that.
Now, if you look at the statement that they issued today, though, they put up a graph that does a projection from 2023 all the way to 2027. There appears to be a question there about, yes, we may not have doomsday now, but going into 2026 and 2027, there may be a problem. In fact, they themselves had made an acknowledgement there.
Yes. So if you look at this graph that is in this statement of theirs, they talk about the base case demand supply outlook between these years that you mentioned. And they admit that in 2026, they may be doomsday. And if I'm to read, it says, from the chart above, the only time doomsday will occur is the year when the projected base case demand is higher than the existing generation in gray color. This from the chart is clearly in 2026. Okay. So if you look at the base case demand supply,
so we need to reconcile that. We need to reconcile this statement that says this from the chart is clearly 2026, and then they say that the only time doomsday will occur is that year. I mean, that appears to contradict their earlier statement that says that it is noteworthy that doomsday, it says this shows that there cannot be imminent doomsday in Ghana. We need to clarify that and try and reconcile those two statements, and we'll do so pretty shortly. But there was another subject that was raised about excess gas.
So John Jinapor's statement again says that Ghana has excess gas leading to capacity payments. Indeed, the report rather recommends that efforts are made to increase available gas supply. This statement disputes that also. It says the recommendation in the 2022 electricity supply plan for arrangements to increase gas supply volumes is not implying procurement of new gas facilities. It was only alerting the demand is growing, and therefore there is a need to make arrangements to increase volumes, because that statement from John Jinapor sought to have claimed that there would have been gas supply issues, but this statement is clearly disputing that and concludes by saying there is no imminent doomsday and there's no cause for alarm.
Let's bring in the Deputy Energy Minister, who's joining us on the telephone line right now. This is such a crucial matter for all of us, and so we need to understand this a bit more beyond what had been printed with the numbers and the figures and the megawatts. And so, Andrew Mensah, who is the Deputy Energy Minister, has agreed to join us and is on the telephone line with us. Mr. Mensah, I'm grateful for your time here on Top Story.
My pleasure as always, Ivan. Good evening.
Good evening. Also joining me is John Jinapo, who first raised the issues about the impending doomsday. Mr. Jinapo, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
Mr. Mensah, if you can reconcile that point I raised earlier in the statement. So, in one breath, in the upper paragraphs, the technical committee states when they refer to the number of megawatts installed, generation capacity in Ghana as against the dependable capacity. They conclude there by saying it shows that there cannot be imminent doomsday in Ghana, right? And then when you come to the charts that they put forward, that represents the base case demand supply outlook. Then they say, quote, from the chart above, the only time doomsday will occur is the year when the projected base case demand is higher than the existing generation in gray. And then they say this from the chart is clearly in 2026. That
That's
appears
right.
to be a contradiction. That reconcile it for me.
Let me say good evening also to my good friend John and to your cherished listeners. Indeed, if you look at the graph, there is no contradiction whatsoever. Okay? Because if you look, again, you will see that there is committed generation, okay, which is due to come on in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027. So he's saying that assuming that the committed capacity does not come on board, then based on the existing generation, which is the dependable capacity, not installed, okay, then the only year that there is likely to be doing so is 2026. Because that is where the gray would have been exhausted.
There are a few terms used there, and I'll be grateful if you can break that down. I mean, that makes good because we need to follow you in and appreciate this. So let's try that again. So you say they use terms like the dependable capacity. You use terms like the base. Well, explain that in essence, in simple terms. What are they saying there?
So we need to look at the data, okay, and then use the data so that there is clarity. There are several color codes that I'm sure you are holding a copy of the release that is contained in the document. There's the gray one that is the existing generation, which is the dependable capacity, because they use the dependable capacity and not the installed capacity.
So dependable is when I turn on my fridge, the generators that give me that power is the one I can depend on. That's a dependable capacity.
Well, individually, yes.
Okay.
But in the total mix itself, okay, there is what is installed generation capacity. And obviously, Ameri is presently not available. Okay. So you hear terms like installed capacity, dependable capacity, available capacity. Available capacity changes from day to day, indeed from hour to hour. Okay, but the installed generation capacity is fixed at a certain point in time because that's what the contractual volume of electricity that you have is. But due to some maintenance schedule, and they cite the example of solar, which because of the battery inefficiencies may not be available at night. If they are doing an analysis of the peak demand, okay, which the analysis was based on, then they would discount, for example, solar. Okay, so solar is not included for purposes of the analysis that they did in the dependable capacity. But I'm saying that if you go to the graph, they also tell you that between 2023 and 2027, there is a yellow that is committed generation, which is early power and the like, which have been contracted, for which, because of the excess as of 2017, some were asked to delay. Okay? And so if those come on stream, or even if those don't come on stream, and what we have that is dependable as of today is what it is that is going to be available in 2026, then it is only that period that we are likely to encounter doom so.
That is, if the committee
Absolutely.
that does not
And
come
the
come
graph
on board.
is so clear; it speaks to itself. I mean, and so it's important for purposes of policy decision that all that is made available to the policymaker to inform what it is that he has to do and at what time. Okay, but the whole issue is the spin that our friends on the other side sought to put on the document to then suggest that all the talk that has been made relative especially to past events, okay, historical, 2017, 18, 19, 20, were all false, and that we've not had excess capacity ever, and that the projection which this document is into the future confirms what it is that they claim may have taken place. And it's difficult to reconcile, really, how the expenditure that we've already incurred for excess capacity in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21 can then be said to be non-existent because a document that projects 2022 to 2027, assuming that even were the case, makes what transpired in 2017 to 2021 false. But even that, clearly, from the statement that the committee has released, unless, of course, you're saying that for purposes of analysis, at all times include the 18% reserve margin. And even if you do that, the graph still shows that the blue line, which is the base capacity, which is required at peak, still there's sufficient enough generation to meet the needs of the people of Ghana.
Let me put that to Mr. Jinapo. Mr. Jinapo, so the technical committee, just to the point that he makes there, charts for us what the generation is, and all the way to 2026. In fact, to be honest, with the exception of 2026, that's where you see this slight difference in the generation capacities that they've said that you may have a challenge there. Doesn't that answer the question that we can't expect doing so anytime soon?
Evans, let's deal with the issues one after the other. I don't want to confuse them. First of all we sought to do is to caution that there's imminent doom so, because existing capacity may not be able to meet future demand. Is that not it? Now listen to what they say in the document, and I've sent you a copy of that document. Additional capacity is needed to augment the existing generation facilities and the enlisted committed generation projects from year 2023. This is the committee, not me. The committee is saying that from 2023, we need additional capacity. And I sent you a chart. If you look at 2023, the dependable capacity is 4,660. Is that not it? Projected demand plus the margin is 4,705. Does that meet that requirement? And you go and issue such a worthless statement. This is their own statement advising that we must take steps to get additional generation. And in that chart, you will see total committed generation, which is 190 for that year. So they've even included committed generation. That is to say, assuming that 190 even comes on, there will still be a deficit. So we need more power. So where is the issue? That is one. Two, we said that the vice president, no less the president, the vice president, says that we've paid 17 billion in excess capacity. We have challenged them for over 1 month now. Provide us with the evidence. You have an opportunity to issue a statement to reinforce the vice president's statement, and you can't even bring that evidence. Where is that evidence? This government must be taken seriously. Provide us with that evidence of a 17 billion so that you and I can peruse that so-called 17 billion. So clearly, if you take these two, the 17 billion that I raised has not even been dealt with. They've not provided any evidence. The issue that Dumso is imminent and that we must get new capacity is found in their own document, page Roman number V, and I've sent it to you. I'm quoting their own statement. The other issue has to do with gas.
Yeah, I mean,
They say
before
we
I go
have
to
enough
gas,
gas.
before I go to gas,
Yes.
on that two issues you've mentioned, it's key. I need to get clarity from Mr. Mensah. Mr. Mensah, indeed, the document makes the point about additional capacities needed to augment the existing generation facilities, and that
Not just existing generation. It says existing generation and enlisted,
I was coming to that.
committed.
I was coming to
So
that.
we are dealing with two, existing generation, and they've added what is committed capacity already, and say we need more.
So stay with me. Let me get some clarity on that, Mr. Mensah. So that advice to you is what it is. That if you don't do that, then you are running into trouble.
The committee's clarification is clear. That analysis that they did includes the 18% reserve margin, which is only intended to be insurance in the event that some of the existing facilities go off.
And we have that quite often.
I don't have a difficulty.
But Ivan, can I move on? Because he's spoken. I have a lot to say.
Two. Not only that. Two.
I'm moving on.
When Bui is running only 2 plants, and they add that is rare. And so, if you discount and of course, they put those in purely for purposes of sensitivity analysis. But the bare fact of the matter is that if you look at the data that is available, it cannot, under any circumstances, be said that Dumso is imminent. And I say this all the time.
However,
But
Mr. Jinapa, I'll come to you shortly so you can make that point. But however, Mr. Mensah, it's also factual to say that in 2026, if you don't increase the capacity and deal with the committed generation, you will have Dumso.
Yes.
So doesn't that I guess?
Issue? I mean, I'm saying to you that as we speak, Ameri 250 megawatts has not been turned on for 1 solid year.
Yeah, you made that point very quickly on the second point. The second point he touched on, 17 billion excess capacity. Where's the evidence to back that?
Which one?
The 17 billion that had been bandied about. Where's the evidence?
You followed my the interview that I granted on Paul Admotri's Good Evening Ghana 2 days ago. I explained that the figures that the vice president put up is pretty clear with respect to how much money that government has paid directly to the IPPs and also for the associated fuel payments that have been made. And I went further to explain that, you see, one will ask that if you say there's excess capacity, why are you paying for fuel? The explanation is very simple. You have a take-or-pay obligation for example, gas, for which whether you consume or you don't, you pay for it. And so, regardless of what your capacity in terms of thermal and other generation assets are, you still have to make use of any facility that has to consume the gas. And you would have to pay for the gas.
Okay, let me get Mr. Junapo to make the third substantive point about excess gas.
That is available.
Ivan, first of all, we are not interested in what Deputy Minister, my friend Ejapa Mensah, explained. Our interest is simple. Provide us with the evidence.
I'm giving
We're interested in explanation. The Vice President knew that there's information available. Put it
People
out
don't get
on
to
that
understand.
17 billion. It's as simple as that.
I was here. I kept
Now,
Mr. Mensah, just a second.
Allow me.
Mr. Mensah,
Let me set the foundation.
yeah, Mr. Mensah,
proceed.
Mr. Mensah, just a second. Substantively, he was addressing a point when I asked you to clarify. Just a second, I'll come back to you to lay out the rest of the evidence you have. Yes, Mr. Jinapo.
Yes, Honorable Jaffa, we are not interested in your explanation. We are interested in the evidence.
No problem.
Provide the evidence. Simple. Let me move on. Evans, I've just told you that in 2023, not 2026, we are supposed to have 4,470 as contained in the 2022 electricity supply plan. We would have a dependable capacity of 4,660, which is less than that. Japan, my friend, says that it is because of insurance. But yes, that is why they are cautioning that you don't match your dependable capacity with your peak demand. You must have a margin because one of the plants can break down, the weather can change. So that's why they are cautioning us that don't match demand just with supply. You must always have an 18% margin. That gives you the redundancy and the comfort. So please, we do sensitivity and scenario analysis and eventually arrive at the optimum. They are presenting the optimum to us. Unless you tell us they didn't do a good job, then that is another problem. Now we talk about gas. He says that we have enough domestic gas. If we have so much domestic gas, why has this government gone to sign the LNG project for Tema? If there's so much domestic gas to feed it, why would you go ahead to sign an LNG project situated in Tema, which is a take or pay agreement? Let's put that aside. If we have so much excess capacity, why is it that in your projection, you decide that AXA, a 370 megawatt capacity plant, whose contract expires next month, you are extending it for another 5 years? They are not just extending it even. The AXA agreement that they have renegotiated, I have seen a draft, and let the deputy minister deny that there's a take or pay clause in the renegotiated AXA agreement. Let him deny it on air, so that when they come to parliament, all of us will see whether that extension of the AXA agreement has a take or pay clause in it. If you have so much capacity, why do you even extend that plant again? Now he says that the plant ought to offtake gas. Let me put it on record that the AXA plant runs on heavy fuel oil. And if you check the demand output from 2017 to 2021 as contained in this document, it clarifies that. We've also made the point that we have the capacity to export power. They told us that was not possible. Even you are a living witness. The vice president told us that Ghana's power is the most expensive. Go and read that document, the same page. We are exporting about 300 megawatts of power today. If our power is so expensive, how come we are exporting 300 megawatts of power? Now, Ameri, so that we can make progress. They say, Ameri, we don't need it. I just sent you a graphic online report. Ghana takes over Ameri. This is from the minister himself. He says that when we situate Ameri in Kumasi, it will boost system reliability, but more importantly, we can export power to Burkina and go forward to confirm that we shall earn 31 million per annum from Ameri alone, the export of power from Ameri alone. That plan has a lifespan of another 20 years. When you project forward, Ameri alone can give us $620 million, not cedis. So let me reduce the points to just 3 or 4 issues. One, you claim that we paid 17 billion. When are you giving us that evidence? Don't lodge it with me. Lodge that evidence with Evans, a neutral person, so that we cannot peruse these so-called 17 billion payments on excess capacity. 2, this document says that for us to be comfortable, and to be comfortable with your power generation is not just matching your peak demand with your dependable capacity. You need an 18% margin. It is the Energy Commission that has determined it. And he's saying that we must quickly do something to bring on additional generation so that by 2023, just the 2023, not 2026, we shall have that capacity with the required reserve margin so that we would prevent a doomsday situation. Is that true or not? Three, are we exporting power or not? And are we exporting 300 megawatts or not?
Okay,
and finally,
if you have Mr. Mensah, I'll come to you shortly right now. Okay, hold on, Mr. Jinapo. Yes, Mr. Mensah. Mr. Mensah, go on.
I don't think that on this particular day you've been fair. Because if you ask me a question, John went on and on and on and on. And if I'm providing the response,
I've just come to you now. Address the question.
Red herrings that are not germane to the issue that we are discussing.
Mr. Mensah, you are using the time. You are using the time to say other things that you can use to address the question.
Look, the figures are here. The amount of money that we paid to IPPs and associated fuel payments is 3,258,627,942.11 United States dollars. Do the conversion, it amounts to 17 billion and change. Fact. Look, the fact that we have paid for, and the minister said that it has been transferred. If you sign a BOOT agreement for a tenure of 5 years, they have built the plant, they have owned it, operated it. Don't they have to transfer after we have paid all those sums of money to them? So if it's transferred to Ghana, what is the issue? Because that is exactly the term of the agreement that we signed. That we're going to build out this plant, operate it for the period that we owed under the agreement, and transfer it to post the payment of all the obligations thereunder. We have indeed paid, and so they have transferred consistent with the terms of the agreement. I'm saying to you that for purposes of generation, which is what it is that Mr. Jinapo suggested, that was imminent doomsday. I'm saying that today, as we speak, Ameri has been off for 1 solid year. Has there been doomsday? There has been no doomsday. So it's not a question about whether Ameri has been bought and that is part of the assets of Ghana or not. The point of the matter is that as we speak, as part of our generation, Ameri is in good condition, but because we do not need it, because of the excess capacity that we have, we haven't turned it on for a year, and we are moving it to Kumasi just so that we can go and use it to support the great stability in that region. That's all. Okay? And I'm saying to you that all the data that the committee has put out is dependent on sensitivity and projections that take into account the likely or unlikely event of some plants not being available. But they themselves go to us that these situations that they are mentioning is rare, and so it of necessity does not support the assertion that is being made by my good friend John Jinapo that there's imminent doomsday in 2023. Evans, again, he knows, as a matter of fact, that they contracted so much power that when this government came in 2017, they had to ask some of the IPPs to hold off. As we speak, because of the projection that we foresee based on previous supply plans that have been generated, conversations have begun to incrementally add. And indeed, if you look at the statement that the Honorable Energy Minister issued in April of 2022, it was clear that between 2017 and 2022, every year some incremental power has been added, which is consistent with the plan that GRICO has laid out. I'm saying that the excess capacity that they contracted between 2014, 2015, 2016, for which all these costs have had to be paid, is historical. And these are matters of fact that cannot be denied, that the government of Ghana, as of 2017, 2018, 2018, and 2020, had so much power that we paid for without consuming. That's a matter of fact.
Even can I deal with this quickly?
That the situation is not going to change going forward. Indeed, There's a document that I will share with you immediately I finish this conversation, which shows that the demand is growing on a year-by-year basis. But the graph clearly demonstrates the installed capacity, the dependable capacity, and what it is that our peak demand is. Indeed, and in fact, as we speak, we are not at our peak demand, and so solar is running. But some plants are idle, and they are in excess for which the government of Ghana is paying for as a result of the contractual obligation that we have. So I don't see where the mixture of the issues really is coming from. It's so clear. The committee has come out to debunk the fear-mongering that they sought to put out, and that is exactly what it is that it is.
Mr. Jinapor, just have a minute. You have
Yes.
a point to make.
Look, Deputy Minister, provide that evidence. We are not interested in you sitting in your office and quoting figures that are known to you alone. And he says that those figures include fuel. Even we speak with facts and evidence. I refer to the 2021 PIAC report, page 61. $500 million of gas was supplied. For the thermal plants, this is gas consumed. ECG couldn't pay. So if government of Ghana steps in and pays that 500 million, which is close to about 4 billion, does that amount to excess capacity? Ajapa, I'm throwing a challenge to you and your government. Provide that evidence today. Or
You
stop
can
talking. We're not interested in your explanation. Our
Mr.
interest
Mensah,
is that evidence that shows that you paid 17
Mr. Mensah, did you say
Parliament as a member of Parliament, and that information, I'm sure, will come from the appropriate custody.
We called the minister to Parliament. He told us that you haven't paid even up to 1 billion. The minister was in Parliament. Joy FM carried that story.
Look,
when we asked him how much have you paid to IPPs, not just excess capacity,
that
total amount to IPPs, the minister said 900 million.
But Mr. Mensah certainly
says
said
that it is 17 billion.
Mr. Jinapor, just a second. Mr. Mensah, just to wrap up, you say that you're ready to present the evidence to Parliament if they ask.
Of course, why not?
Why should it be Parliament? Why not Joy FM? Why must it be Parliament?
Mr. Mensah, you can also publish this. You can also publish this to us, and we'll publish it for you if you indeed have it. You have it.
Come to Parliament.
Without you respect,
Did Bawumia come to Parliament to announce the 17 billion?
Okay.
No, did Dr. Bawumia come to Parliament?
Okay,
to announce the 17 billion?
Mr. Jinapor, I allowed you to wrap up.
Come to Parliament.
Mr. Jinapor, just a second. Yes, Mr. Mensah.
You see this confusion that if you say that there is excess capacity and that you are not consuming the power, why are you paying for fuel? It's most unfortunate. Because the truth of the matter is that, and I'll use a simple example. If you have 100 megawatts of thermal power and you have 50 megawatts of gas-dependent, hydro, 100 hydro, and 50 gas-powered thermal, but your total peak demand is 100 megawatts. Question is, if you have a take or pay obligation for gas, which whether you use or don't, you would still have to pay for it. Would you only run the thermal, the hydro, and leave the thermal which is on take or pay, and also the gas to be flared, or that you run the gas-powered thermal and reduce?
So why have you done a take or pay for another LNG project?
You see,
if you know all this.
The truth of the matter is that because of the recklessness.
So why have you signed a take or pay for an LNG gas project?
The fuel side and then the power generating side. And so you ought to manage it such that the cost that you incur is minimized.
Okay. I'm grateful, gentlemen. And that's the Honorable Deputy Minister for Energy and his good friend, he calls him, John Jinapor, on the subject of something that's very important to all of us. So the government position is there is no imminent doom, and that their commitments to make. You've heard the minority side also argue that we need to make the investments to avert a potential doom next year. You've heard the analysis. You have to make up your own minds. 055 1111 997. Ghana Connect starts in a minute.
Sweetheart, give me proper breakfast. Later, give me lunch and